Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the English Shooting live stream. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Of course, for all you regulars, you know what this is about. For anybody new, welcome, and welcome, of course, to the regulars as well. But this is where we sit down and chat about all the past week's shooting news and topics, primarily around shooting and firearms ownership here within the UK. But we'll talk about international stuff as well. We quite often do, and don't be shy, get involved. There's a chat box there if you have any questions. If you're watching this live, if you've got any questions or any topics that you want to bring up, then please do. If you want to have your opinions heard on any of the topics that we are discussing, then get involved, whether you agree or disagree. Let's open up the conversation. And of course, most importantly, don't forget to hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed, because we try to do this every single week. And as soon as my my laptop is sufficiently repaired, the streams will be back to their usual quality, and I will also be able to do video editing once again. Pro tip: don't try to do video editing on a 10-year-old Mac. It's just not going to happen, or live streams for that matter, unless you want to be in potato vision. But anyway, less about that. Again, anybody that has watched the stream last week, or I think even the week before, you will know what's up. But let's get into the main topic. So, of course, firearms owners, potential aspiring firearms owners here within the UK have not had the easiest few years. Pretty much as soon as that COVID-19 struck, it really threw firearms licensing into turmoil. Now, there's been a lot of excuses, some valid to some extent, but a lot of excuses that really just don't hold any water for why it is taking so long for people to get their certificates, why even certain departments up and down the country decided to close and effectively have a extended holiday period, whilst other departments doing the exact same job in different areas of the country remained open and still kept up their performance. And performance is a huge thing here within the UK, because our firearms licensing is done by each county. The disparity between performance, between waiting times for initial applications or renewals, is vast, and no one can really put their finger on why. You just seem to have some counties that are actively trying to do everything possible to not give out certificates, and some that actually see it as their lawful duty and do their job. The most recent sort of, I don't know, kick while we're down is that certain firearms licensing departments are illegally backdating certificates. So with all of the delays that have been created, whether they are excusable or not, whether they are justified or explainable or not, that's another discussion. But there are these significant delays. We're seeing people waiting 2 to 3 years for an initial application when it should really be 2 to 3 months. It is utterly disgusting what some of these firearms licensing departments are doing. And there are people that have had their certificates expire and have been on temporary certificates for over 12 months, which is absolutely extraordinary. At the end of the day, firearms licensing is there to keep the public safe. Our firearms licensing system and firearms licensing departments are there to ensure that the people who possess firearms are fit to do so, that they are not going to pose a danger to themselves or anybody else. And there's less to worry about, in some extent, in them not issuing the certificates in a timely manner, because until they get the certificates, people can't go out and buy the firearms. So, there's no exposure to risk there. But when somebody already has a certificate, when they are already in possession of a firearm, and somebody out there, obviously far wiser than me, have decided that 5 years is the optimum renewal time to make sure that everyone is still fit and proper and safe to be in possession of these firearms. If you have people going past that expiry date, not by a small amount, but by 12 months. I've even heard 18 months and beyond that. That is starting to drastically increase the risk to the public. That means you have people that haven't been assessed within that 5-year period, and they're stretching that out to 6, 7 years. Perhaps that's actually a justification of why certificates should be 10 years rather than 5 years, because they seem so happy to allow people to wait closer to 10 years than they do their 5. And these delays mean that, when they finally get their certificates, usually it's meant to happen pretty much instantaneously. You're meant to have your renewal by the time your certificate expires. So therefore, it's quite logical that your new certificate would carry on pretty much to the day from when your old one expired. But what certain firearms licensing departments are doing is 12, 18 months down the line, where someone has been on a temporary certificate, instead of handing them a new certificate that is valid for 5 years, they are backdating that certificate, that 12, 18-month delay, to when their old one expires, meaning that people are getting certificates that aren't valid for 5 years anymore. They're valid for 4 years, maybe 3.5, 3 years. And this is wrong on so many levels. Not only is it the case that we are in effect customers, we are referred to as customers when you pay firearms licensing, and you are paying for a service, that service being that you are going to get a certificate that is valid for 5 years. You're being significantly shortchanged if you actually are given a firearm certificate that's only valid for 3.5, 4 years. Then we also have the accumulative effect of, we've already had 2 to 3 years of significant delay and turmoil within firearms licensing. And now they've shortened the period until the next renewal is going to be due, which is in some cases going to be due in another 3 years. So are they going to be able to sort it out in time? Or are they just creating, let's say 3 to 5 years down the line, a backlog and delay that is going to significantly surpass what we are seeing at the moment? It's almost like they are deliberately setting themselves up to fail in having certificates that are going to effectively expire much quicker, much sooner, therefore creating a lot more work. And in addition to that, of course, it limits the amount of time that a certificate is valid, and theoretically the amount of time that somebody can be in possession of a firearm. So this general thought, and maybe conspiracy is too, I don't really think it's a conspiracy at this point. This well accepted, I think, plan for firearms licensing to, in essence, self-destruct, to remove the burden from themselves by getting to a point where it's literally not recoverable. In addition to that, this general scheme that there seems to be of not giving out certificates when their job is to give out certificates. And all of this has come from, I always say, I love them or hate them, and there will be some discussions later about why you can very much hate them at the moment. This has all come from Basque. So there's been an article put out on Basque, which has your certificates been backdated? So this is also another thing for you guys to be aware of, because they are asking for you to get in contact with them. Now, whether you want to trust Basque and you want to help them out and do that, that's entirely up to you. But this is sort of like a public service announcement that if you have experienced this yourself, if you have experienced your certificate landing on the door after your renewal far longer after you expected it to, and it's been backdated and you've effectively lost time, don't think that this is just a one-off and it's a singular clerical error. This seems to be deliberately done. So Basque is very interested in hearing from you if you have had this happen to you. They really don't like it. They have made obviously the statement as well that this is this is actually illegal. So the firearms licensing departments are breaking the law in doing this to certificate holders. And again, whilst this isn't a good situation for us to be in, for firearms licensing to be in, for firearms owners and certificate holders to be in, at least they've now done something that is criminal, right? It is, previously taking 3 years to do an application. That's not, there's actually nothing in the guidance that says they have to do a renewal or do process an application within a certain amount of time. There is no legal guidance in terms of the service deliverable. It's just well accept that it should be 2 to 3 months. And this is against the law. So this is something that Basque legally can go and beat them over the head with. And what they are quoting is that it is section 28A of the Firearms Act 1968, which if we go to, it's basically very well defined. Section 28A, certificates. A certificate shall, unless previously revoked or cancelled, continue in force for 5 years from the date when it was granted or last renewed. So this is the language that Basque are picking up on, is that if you've had a delay of 12 to 18 months where you haven't renewed someone's certificate, well, you didn't renew it on the date that it expired, because why would you need an extension, right? It's renewed when you get round to issuing the certificate, and the certificate should be issued with that date and no previous date on it. They are in contravention of the Firearms Act. So again, it shows in a way that at best the lack of care with firearms licensing, offering the service that they should at a legal minimum be given. But you could be a little bit more skeptical and say that it just shows this, what we've known now for a few years, this deliberate sort of disdain for actually doing their job, for actually doing what they are required to do. And for once, they've actually broken something that is clearly black and white, and something that maybe there is going to be, to know, some sort of punishment. And Basque are going to obviously investigate this. And going back to their article, if your police firearm licensing department has issued you with a backdated firearms or shotgun certificate following a delay in your renewal, we would like to hear from you. Basque has been made aware of one UK police force that has been issuing backdated certificates to applicants. This has happened in circumstances where, due to delays in renewing, individuals have been issued with Section 7 temporary permits. The permits have sometimes been in place for more than 12 months. And again, I've heard of 18 months plus as well. When, however, a new certificate was issued, it was backdated to the previous one's expiry date. This is directly in contravention of the Section 28A of the Firearms Act 1968. It is also against Home Office and FELWIG advice. FELWIG is the Firearm Explosives Licensing Working Group. It's where all of the key stakeholders, predominantly the Home Office and the police, sit down and really discuss, I think, the general understanding of how things should be. We have anecdotal evidence that this practice is also happening in other forces, and Basque would be interested in members' experiences. If you or anybody or somebody you know has been issued with a backdated certificate, whether for a rifle, shotgun, or both, please get in touch by emailing them there. So it's really easy to get hold of Basque. If you do want to contact them, go on to basque.org.uk and see their contact us page. So where this is going to go, I don't know, but I really hope Basque go hard on this. If a firearms licensing department, knowingly or otherwise, is breaking the law, there has to be some repercussions to that. There can't just be that, oh, sorry, we messed up. No, you don't get to make mistakes in firearms licensing. We have Plymouth and Devon and Cornwall to show us what happens when you do. They like to hold us to the absolute highest standards of anybody else in the country, and they need to be held to the exact same standards. Whether there should be, sanctions put on that on the firearms licensing departments that are doing that, don't know. If there should be reprimands for the individuals that have done it or instructed to do it, or should there be some sort of compensation to the applicants, to the customers that have effectively, they've there's been an attempt to shortchange them. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. Daniel seems to be having an interesting evening. Let me know how you guys are getting on with your firearms licensing departments at the moment, your sort of weights. There was a post in the English Shooting Facebook group, so if you are looking for somewhere to chat with like-minded individuals, you can head over to Facebook as well. There's a Facebook page and also a Facebook group. And I think somebody asked the question of, was it normal that their certificate had taken 2 years? Now, previously, certainly when I first started getting into shooting sports, 2 years for an initial application was unheard of. It was just, you couldn't even begin to imagine the applications taking 2 years. I was seeing friends getting their certificates in a matter of weeks, never mind years. But despite COVID now not being a problem, despite these firearms licensing departments having had plenty of time to adjust to all of the statutory guidance changes, which they already had years to prepare for, there still seems to be these unacceptable and unexplainable delays. And in talking within the group, I ended up going through and digging out the receipt for my application. So there has been no update on this, but this sort of shows you the state of firearms licensing at the moment, and how you can be, like myself, completely helpless in moving things forward. So this is a prime example. So I have still not been issued a firearm or shotgun certificate, and yet my application went in literally over 3 years ago. I mean, I always liked the idea of setting records and maybe ending up in the Guinness Book of World Record at some point. The longest time ever to issue a certificate between application and grant, not a record that I thought I would ever be going for or even wanted to go for. So I still have, I've had my interviews, my references have been checked, and nothing. So this is what firearms licensing is able to get away with, right? Because I've gone through my solicitor. They can send angry angry emails and letters to Hampshire Police. We can threaten them with various judicial reviews, and they are just not interested. There is nothing within the law currently that is required that requires them to issue certificates within a timely manner or any sort of time limit. And this is why there's this big push from Basque. I've been pushing it as well, that firearms licensing and firearms licensing departments, they need to go back to the drawing board, and certainly the guidance and statutory guidance and the laws around them need to be more specific in terms of what their job is and what metrics that they should be hitting. In the law, it says that a certificate shall be issued if somebody is of good character and there are there's no concerns over safety of themselves or safety of the public. So it is a shall issue. They shall issue one if you meet the criteria. But nothing in there does it say how long it should take. It's almost very similar to the likes of the tax stamps out in America. You can go and apply for, a $250 tax stamp for an SBR or a moderator, suppressor, silencer, whatever you want to call them. But it can take, I think there were times where it was taking well over a year for some of those applications because there was nothing in the law to say how quickly they should be processed. So if you're sat there thinking, oh, you know, it's taking forever. It's been 12 months since my application, or it's been 18 months or 2 years. Yep, it can get a lot worse than that. Take it from me, and it is utterly disgusting. Um, you know, in my own case, in my own application, at the end of the day, I go into a business every single day with, I'm not going to pull up the register, but in the region of at any one time with 50 to 100 firearms in the armory, with more ammunition than any one person could carry. So I can be under a registered firearms dealer, but I can't have a firearms certificate for my own personal firearms. This just shows I think the bias and unprofessionalism and what firearms licensing departments are able to get away with. You know, it's completely asinine in some situations that they get to pick and choose based on maybe personal feelings rather than anything professionally or tangible. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. There is, of course, the incredibly important lead consultation. Now, there is another, just as a quick forewarner, you need to go and fill out this consultation. I will be doing a full video on it as soon as I'm able to edit again. But there is the link to the consultation. This is the social economic consultation around the banning of lead. So for anyone that has been living under a rock for the last week or two, there's been some pretty significant developments. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time recapping them because we did this on the stream last week, but there has been some pretty significant announcement from HSE on what they're going to be proposing and what they are going to be pushing for in terms of lead ammunition restriction and a lead ban. So just to recap, there was this document that was published. So in terms of birdshot, in terms of lead birdshot, the use of lead for target shooting, the use of lead shot for quarry shooting and target shooting is going to be prohibited. There's going to be this derogation which will allow some athletes to continue using lead. We don't know how that's going to work. Let's make that big for you guys. We don't know how that's going to work. Whether it's going to be literally a handful or whether we can spread that out and still have some sort of a sport. But lead is going. I can't see any which way where somebody is going to be able to get into this sport, go down to the playground for the first time, and be able to use lead shot. You're going to have to demonstrate yourself as a serious competitor, a bona fide athlete before you get anywhere near it. There is, of course, the restriction on the use of lead bullets for outdoor target shooting. Again, this is going to be prohibitive, so you won't be able to use lead bullets outdoors unless you are on an approved site. We don't know how the sites are going to be approved, what the requirements are going to be, and if it's even going to be economical for places to do that. But contradictory, bearing in mind that the whole thing about lead ban with ammunition was to prevent it from getting into the food chain. There's going to be no restriction for the use of lead bullets for live quarry shooting out in outdoors. So shooting at a singular target where the lead is going to be concentrated and easily recoverable, that's going to be prohibited. But shooting into a deer somewhere out in a field where if you miss, the lead's going to end out in the field, basically impossible to recover. And even if you do hit your target, you are then going to be eating it. But that's fine. Shooting at a shooting at a target, nope. But shooting at a deer, absolutely fine. Nobody can be harmed by the lead on that one. A small win, because it was proposed that they were going to bring this in. No restriction is proposed in lead airgun ammunition for either quarry or target shooting. And Basque has, instead of publishing new recipes on what to do with your game meat, Basque have actually responded to the initial announcement. I'm sure there will be a lot more. So Basque new HSE LED consultation launched. New HSE consultation launched on lead ammunition. So the reason there's a new consultation, just and why I've put the link in the description, is that there's another further consultation on this, and there's still a chance for you to provide compelling evidence or a compelling argument for them to not go ahead with it. So please, again, go and do that. And what Basque have actually recommended is that a lot of the questions are incredibly technical and incredibly, a lot of people aren't going to be able to give an answer for a lot of the questions, but you will be able to leave a general comment at the back of the consultation. We didn't actually go through the consultation last week on stream, so we will go through it in a sec, in lieu of being able to do a video, a dedicated video at the moment. So Basque summary. Now, I think this is very telling of just how, like, Basque know they've messed up, right? Again, a very quick recap. Basque launched this voluntary transition away from lead. They said that all the manufacturers were ready for this transition and were raring to go. Famously, the manufacturers turned around and said, "You haven't talked to us. You haven't consulted with us. We are nowhere near ready." And Basque were left with a lot of egg or lead on their face. And they've been, I think, hopelessly trying to play it off as, oh, we've still done something really good for the shooting community. No, they haven't, right? Let's be frank about it. Basque have made this a lot worse in effectively just waving the white flag. They wave the white flag by going, "Oh, look, everybody, lead's really bad. We should be moving away from it." And when HSE came in, we didn't have a leg to stand on, because Basque are the largest shooting organization in the country, had already said how bad lead was. So how are we ever going to argue against it? And we will never know. But I just have a gut feeling that the whole thing with target shooting, because Basque were, in their defense, they were specific about moving away from lead from quarry shooting. But in my mind, how easily they advocated that, they opened the door massively for target shooting to follow out with it. So they certainly haven't helped in that respect. And I think what is very telling here is, remember the order that we've just seen them announcing those restriction. They put lead shot first, but when you go here, oh, it's about airgun pellets. Oh, let's shit sandwich this one for everybody, shall we? Let's start with the good news. Yay, no restrictions on lead pellets. Cool, yeah, great for the airgun shooters. But then straight away, proposed ban within 5 years or less, depending on consultation outcome. It's just that is the last point. The way that everybody else has structured their response and their news on this, lead airgun pellets are at the back. Basque really didn't feel confident enough to lead this article with the worst news, because, again, I think they have played not an insignificant part in this being far worse than it could have been. Rifle ammunition for live quarry shooting, no restriction proposed, but this outcome could change depending on the consultation outcome. Rifle ammunition for target shooting can continue on approved ranges where mitigation measures for lead removal are in place, with a 2-year grace period. So that's very interesting, because, again, I still haven't been able to really go through and pick out all the details. So this is a little bit more news. So we are looking at less than 5 years to losing lead. So I guess I'll be able to do the next shotgun weld shoot with some lead, at least just one more. Can continue on approved ranges with a 2-year grace period. So ranges are going to have 2 years from the date that this comes into effect to get themselves up to scratch. Social economic consultation. The above proposals are subject to the HSE public consultation, which opened this week and will run for 60 days, closing on the 10th of December. You can find a brief explanation of each proposal below. So they basically give more summary here. But what I think, like, it's almost like the ghoul of them like writing this. So bearing in mind, again, just as a recap, when this all started, Basque went out there and said very loudly, very confidently, the shotgun cartridge manufacturers are ready to move to lead alternatives. They said it as fact, and they said it loud and proud. Now, this is the first time that I've seen that Basque have officially contradicted themselves. In any case, Basque will be recommending to HSE, where'd it go? We'll be recommending to HSE that any transition time for cartridges used in live quarry shooting must take into account the world shortage of components due to the war in Ukraine and the need for manufacturers and assemblers to source new machinery to produce steel cartridges with biodegradable wads. Sorry, what's that, Basque? So when they first released this voluntary transition away from lead, it was pre-COVID. We're talking 3 years ago, over 3 years ago now, that they first launched this voluntary transition away from lead. And yes, COVID sort of messed things up. The war in Ukraine has made things very difficult, right? But they should still be more progressed from 3 years ago. Maybe not as progressed as they thought they would be or where they expected to be, but they certainly should be in a better situation than 3 years ago. And Basque were very confident and very assertive in this fact that manufacturers were ready, assemblers were ready, and to be ready would imply that they would have the machinery to produce steel cartridges and biodegradable wads. But yet now Basque are going back to HSE saying, no, we need more time because the manufacturers aren't ready. If I was HSE, I would be laughing at them. Sorry, rewind when you said that all the manufacturers were ready. So what should we believe here? What you said 3-4 years ago, that we should move away from lead and everybody was ready, or that you're not ready? Because it seems like you're sort of switching your tune depending on what agenda you're trying to push here. It, like, again, Basque, in fairness, have been, certainly with firearms licensing, have been doing a fantastic job recently. But this whole thing about lead and lead ammunition is just not going to go away for them. They really, I think, to get any respect on this, it might be too late, but I think there's still time for them to claw back some modicum of respect by putting their hands up and going, we got this really wrong. We probably haven't made things any better. We've probably actually made things a lot worse in hindsight. But this is what we've learned from it. These are the facts. This is where we're at. Because now it just really seems that they are just changing their tune as it see fits. And if I was HSE, I would be calling them out on that, like, straight away. And then it does call into question the validity of anything that Basque is putting forward, because it's like, well, hang on a minute. If you got it wrong on this and you're contradicting yourself here, what else are you providing us that isn't factual? What else are you providing us that you're going to contradict yourself on a couple of years down the line? So yeah, they really haven't done themselves any favors whatsoever. So in terms of responding to the consultation, the online survey form that HSE has provided for consultation responses contains mostly technical and confusing questions. Instead, you can submit your response via the general comments section at the end of the HSE survey response form. If you would like to write more than the word limit of 2,500 characters, then you can upload your own comments as a Word document. And just to show you, this is the consultation. and we will go through it in a little second. So stay tuned if you want to find out what's in it without actually having to do any work. Let's have a quick look at what you guys have been saying in the comment section. I am on the Connors approved Pepsi Max this evening. It's been I did think it's been a while since there's been Pepsi Max on the stream. To be honest, it's been a while since there's been any sort of beverage other than orange squash. Maybe we need to get a nice like whiskey collection. Beers are always too gassy on stream, and I end up burping too much. But maybe like we could have some like guns and whiskey evenings. Maybe like sat down having a nice stogie whiskey, talking about guns. They seem to go together quite well. Brian Solomon, 15 months around the norm, but they should be getting faster now. Yes, firearms licensing absolutely should be getting faster. There is no excuse for them to still have these delays. There is no excuse for them to not be getting faster, yet they seem to be getting worse. There definitely does seem to be a concerted, deliberate effort to deliberately delay certificates. Brian Solomon, my mate's renewal took 10 months. See, 10 months. We're looking at 10 months now going, that's not bad, actually. 10 months isn't... them taking 10 months is still insanity, right? It's not... And in Devon of Cornwall, of all places, which... Well, we all know it's maybe a little bit more difficult in Devon and Cornwall to get a certificate than it used to be. Captain Crash, my interview, I had my interview yesterday and I was told that our significant delay, that will teach me to leave it. Too late for my renewal. Now has to be dealt with as a full grant. What? That doesn't sound right. You should still be able to do the renewal. If they're not able to process your certificate, your renewal before your expiry date, if you still have an in-date non-expired certificate and you have put in your renewal application, your renewal forms, and they are not able to process that renewal before your expiration date, that is not your problem. That is very much their problem. And what they should be doing and what you should be asking for is a Section 7 temporary permit. That's down to them. To ask you to go through a full new grant, they are, again, deliberately trying to make things harder for you and cost more money. Let's not forget that a full grant is significantly more expensive than a renewal. So I wouldn't be Captain Crash. I would be going back to them and going, absolutely not. I am not that. That is not my problem. Issue me with a temporary permit and process my renewal that you are legally required to do. David Calby waiting 3.5 months in Kent so far. See, 3 months is you should have your certificate now. Nick Newton, 18 months waiting for a variation. Wow. That is not on. A variation should be, again, a few weeks. Never mind 18 months. That is absolutely sickening. Again, it just gives a massive argument for why variations should not, a gun shop should be able to do a variation, in my mind, right? They've issued you with a firearm certificate, right? They are trusting you with firearms to begin with. They are trusting you with ammunition. Why does it matter if you've got 2 guns or you've got 20, right? As long as your security is up to scratch, as long as you have good reason for those guns, well, the security you can have signed off by the police during your initial interview. You can go and get enough storage for 20 or 30 guns to begin with, and then you're ticked off for that amount. So that's not an issue. But a gun shop should be able, certainly a 1-for-1 variation. that shouldn't be handled by firearms licensing. If they've certainly given you the slot, say for a 308, and you fill that slot and change your mind and go and get another gun, why isn't that paperwork being handled by the gun shop? And in terms of a 1-for-1 where you've gone for a 308, not filled it, and decided to go for a 223, if you've already got the 308, why do you need to go back to firearms licensing and ask for them to put? Why can't that be done at a gun shop? Why aren't firearm certificates open like shotgun certificates? You're a fit and proper person. You are being entrusted already. You can be entrusted to buy guns that you've got good reason for, and not misuse them. And moreover, why does it matter if you go and do something bad with a gun? Why does it matter if you had good reason for that gun or not? You've been given the certificate in the first place. You know, having good reason does not call into question your character and the danger you pose to yourself or others. Quickie 1984. It's the lack of updates that gets me. Yes, and a lot of people have. I think this is one of the biggest things for people, right? The lack of communication, the lack of ability to go and contact and liaise with your firearms licensing departments, and this seemingly this growing trend for firearms licensing departments to not put out their phone numbers, to have really restricted hours that you can call them, to remove contact forms and email addresses, just have an FAQ sort of system. Again, we are customers, right? We are customers that are paying for a service. You should be able to phone somebody up and go, what is going on here? Right? Give me a straight answer. It's criminal. The Dorset website info was finally updated, but with no better information. Noel Wallace. Here we go. 2.5 hours of waffle that would take any normal bloke 8 minutes to say. Yep. But your mum just loves listening to me. So what can I do? It helps her go to sleep. There's other things that help her get to sleep as well, but I won't bore you with the details. As always, Noel, if you think that you can do a better job, if you think that you can provide a more concise, better factual information out there about shooting sports and topics and news, be my guest, please. Your mum and I will be watching. So the people just well, now I feel bad. By the way, don't mean any offense. The content is interesting and relevant, but I can't justify watching a whole video. But it's a live stream. Like, you wouldn't do a live stream for like 8 minutes. Like that's why there's like full videos, which you can go and watch as well. I don't know. I mean, you've been sticking around for like more than 8 minutes, so it must be reasonably entertaining. Callum, it should be 2 to 3 days or weeks. Absolutely, 100% agree. I've known of people in decent areas and decent firearms licensing counties. They've phoned up their firearms licensing department in the morning and gone, really sorry, I really need a variation for this reason today or as soon as possible. And they've gone, yeah, sure, just swing on by at this time. We'll swap it over for you. And they have literally got a variation the same day. One of my friends' initial application, they had their coterminous firearm certificate in under a month, right? And they didn't even meet their FEO, which still sort of baffles me. But anyway, that's Hampshire for you. MacMan, current waiting time in Essex is 1 month if the applicant has no criminal or medical conditions. Interesting. Um, Quickie 1984. I might just move. I might be joining you. Do you want to go? Do you want to go halves on a place? Brian Solomon, that is a very, very good point. Yes, it might sound like a quick and easy fix in terms of the temporary certificates, but not only can you not buy ammunition, but you can't buy or sell your guns. So buy your own guns, but there's been people previously that have been trapped. You might you might need to raise some cash, right? A lot of shooters have a reasonable amount of money into their firearms, and there's loads of people that I know that when the car breaks, or they're looking to buy a new house, they might sell some guns to raise some cash, and then over the following years will buy back the guns, or get replacement guns over that time. So there is an inherent value to these guns, and a lot of guns can retain good value long term. So it actually can cause people financial difficulties if you've got that money tied up in those guns and you can't get rid of them. Now, with a temporary permit, I guess you could go to a shop and they could sell it, and then when it comes through, you cross it off yourself. But there have been, but yeah, if you don't have the certificate, can you? So it's an interesting one. I've definitely had friends where they've not had a temporary permit, but they've had to give their old certificates back for a variation, or sometimes even renewal, and they don't have their certificate. They can't actually prove that they own those guns, which is another whole issue as well. Jesus. People are going at it. And Silvermine 203, appreciate the algorithm boosts. Nick Newton, definitely dragging their heels on purpose. Good few up my end, waiting excessively long times for variations. No step on Snake. You missed some stepping on Snake by the UK government. No step on Snake. Oh, sorry, we made a mistake. Is how innocent people get hurt when it comes to firearms. Absolutely. Kung Fu Chef, speaking of licensing, they made it a lot harder to get a CCW in my state because they can't deny us unless we are a felon anymore. So how do they make it? So I don't get how that's made it harder. Silvermine 203. You should start your own non-profit firearms organization, bringing together firearms owners across the UK. Yes, we've talked about this many times. It takes a huge amount of time and money, like so does most things, to do something like that. It is something that I think about all the time, but I don't know what I would do differently. I don't, rather than just having another organization, what would be my sort of, or the organization's modus operandi? What is it going to do differently that other organizations aren't doing already, and be more effective? Plus it's the time. I'm doing what I see as my bit to help the area of sport that I'm most passionate about, and that's practical shooting, that's IPSC, that's the UK PSA. And we are, we're not necessarily a political organization, but we deal with firearms in the UK. You can't be a national governing body and not get political. And there is a lot of stuff that the UK PSA is making big progress on, in terms of laws, firearms licensing, this, that, and the other. So there is a lot of stuff that is being done by the association that I'm having some part in supporting, or influencing, or whatever. So that's what I think at the moment my efforts and energies is best spent on. Plus there's of course Magload, that that is what pays the bills at the end of the day, and what I need to really make sure continues to pay the bill. I'm just skipping through, try and keep up the I can lag behind sometimes on the comments. Reese Whitaker, could I get an SGC, a shotgun certificate with depression? Yes. I'm not going to say it's not going to cause issues having depression. I'm not going to say that it could bar you from being able to, well, not bar you, but it could prevent you from getting a shotgun certificate. But there are plenty of people that do have depression, that have anxiety, that do have, a myriad of there are, a myriad of mental health issues that don't preclude you from being a firearm certificate. But like with mental health, it's sort of like a how long's a piece of string thing. Every single case is different. So it will really depend on your own personal circumstances, but I certainly wouldn't self-rule yourself out. The first thing I would do is speak to your doctor and see what your doctor says, and maybe even phone up firearms licensing, and talk with them before your application. But I would just put in your application, like, there's so many people that prevent themselves from getting their certificate because they're like, oh, they're going to reject me, like, so I'm not going to apply. It was like, well, that's the same outcome. Right? So put your application in. If they say no, you haven't lost anything. Whereas if they say yes, you've gained your certificate. So don't make yourself the barrier. David Kiddle, IWA show is February. We'll see who has what. Should be out for IWA in February. Fingers crossed. No step on snack, whiskey, cigars, and shotguns. A good time indeed. Admittedly, over the past, I don't know how long it's been now, but at least a few months, if not 6 months, I've got pretty into cigars. It's another expensive hobby / pastime that I really don't need, and of course you can't really get into cigars without getting into whiskey, hence the whiskey. Magload whiskey hits the spot. Maybe Magload branded whiskey. That could be we could have two blends. We could have the Connors and the Callum, with very distinct different notes. Like in the Connors blend, there's always one singular floating beard hair. It'd be very apt. Rick B, 20 months and waiting, and the kicker is I may have to change one of my references as they are thinking of emigrating. It really depends in terms of your references. First of all, I wouldn't say anything straight away. Like, if they've already made contact with your references and they've already got what they need, I wouldn't be phoning up and telling them I need to change them. If they come to interview you, and well, actually, admittedly, what happened with mine, if you haven't had your interview yet, don't worry, because I had exactly the same thing happen, because one of my, well, it was Connors was going to be one of my references, and by the time I had my interview, he was a registered firearms dealer who can't be a reference. So I had to provide a new referee, but I did it with my FEO during my interview. I said, look, Connors now can't be a referee, but I've already got somebody else. Here's their details, and they were absolutely fine. So you won't have to, hopefully, as long as they're sensible about it, you won't have to reapply and go through the whole application process again. I heard Surrey and Sussex have merged. This may have led to loss of admin staff, training, new staff. Takes up time. I think this may be the reason grants are taking so long. Yeah, there can be some reasonable excuses, like, we've just merged, we're having a restructuring, we've lost a lot of staff that we're having to retrain. That I can completely understand and can sympathize with. But it's these departments that have exactly the same people, the same levels of staff, and the same level of training as they did prior COVID, and yet their waiting times are still 5 times longer. It just makes absolutely no no sense. Can't wait to call in the GMP and wish my SGC grant a happy birthday. We're on month 11, baby. Oh dear. 10 months is enough time that a membership could expire if you'd applied pretty sharplessly too. And also, your letter of recommendation may not be available depending on how strict your club is. Pain. Yeah, these are all things like, at what point does your GP form no longer becomes valid? At what point do they deem that your referees need to be reassessed, or even your what you've provided? Like, you know, as people get older, they shrink. You know, you don't actually put your height and weight on your application, do you? I think when I first applied, you did. There's a lot of things that can change, right? Especially over 3 years. And a lot of people that are spending a year, 2 years, like, a lot can change in that time. And again, the risk to the public here, the exposure that these firearms licensing departments have in, you know, processing and issuing certificates with information that's a year, 2, 3 years old is madness. A poll on waiting times. We can actually do that in the group, or I might even be able to do that on the English Shooting Facebook page. That would be very interesting. I'll put that out. It could be like, you know, waiting times. How long have you been waiting, or how long was your application? Did your application take? So yeah, you can do like, 0 to 1 month, 1 month to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to a year to 2 years, 2 years to 3 years. It'd be really interesting to see. Paul Blart, straight to the point on that one. Can I apply for a shotgun certificate with depression? Are you planning on killing yourself or others? I mean, you're not wrong. Like, that is literally what it comes down to. As long as you are not a danger to yourself or others, you should be fine. Captain Crash, just to clarify, I left it too late to put my renewal in, so my certs run out. I had to lodge my guns at a dealer. My application went in as a renewal, but as my original certs had dropped off the system. Oh, okay, all right. That's, in fairness, that's more understandable. The real tragedy is that our country has been stolen by our enemies. Okay, yeah, let's swiftly move on. English shooting. So rifle shooters are fine. It's just birdshot that has to change. I'm guessing buck and slug are fine then. We don't know. This is the thing. And I did see somebody ask the question, quite an important question, of how indoor ranges and indoor shooters are going to be affected by all of this. So for indoor rifle shooting, absolutely no problem at all. That will continue. Indoor ranges are going to be unaffected. It's just outdoor ranges that will have to meet certain standards. So it depends how expensive it's going to be. It could actually work out cheaper to put a roof over an outdoor range than actually bring the range up to like standard. And what constitute indoors? Like, what are the legal definitions of indoors? So I'm sure there's going to be some people doing, like, people are just going to be putting tarpaulin over their ranges. Yeah, it's indoors, mate. Honest. And look, there's a deer over there. Ha. George Smith, hey lads, late to the party. What on earth is happening? This is fine. So just as a recap on the main story, if you are just joining us, there's been quite a major story from Basque that firearms licensing departments across the country are breaking the law. It's all off of this article here. Have you had your certificate backdated? If your police firearms licensing department has issued you with a backdated firearms or shotgun certificate following a delay in your renewal, we would like to hear from you. BASC has been made aware of one UK police force that has been issuing backdated certificates to applicants. This has happened in circumstances where, due to delays in renewing, individuals have been issued with a Section 7 temporary permit. The permits have sometimes been in place for more than 12 months. When, however, a new certificate was issued, it was backdated to the previous one's expiry date. This is directly in contravention of Section 28A of the Firearms Act 1968. It is also against Home Office and Felwig advice. And if we actually go to that law, this is what the law says. This isn't guidance, right? This is the Firearms Act 1968. This is law in black and white. A certificate shall, unless previously revoked or cancelled, continue in force for 5 years from the date it was granted or last renewed. So again, just because they've taken 12, 18 months to give you your certificate, that's not your fault. And it's when the certificate is renewed, that's when they print it off and give it to you, not when your last one expired. So they're shortchanging us. They are breaking the firearms law. And again, it just goes to hint and show the sort of disregard they have to actually doing the job properly. Just as a side note, like it's because people actually get really stressed. I've seeing a lot of people in the comment section saying about, my certificates expired and I had to go and lodge with an RFD. My certificates did this, and I suddenly I didn't know what to do. And we've at Magload, we've had people late at night. I think there was one guy we happened to. I think fortunately, just we happened to be in the unit. We were working late one night, and the phone went at like 8, half 8. And well, what's the worst? It could be an international customer that doesn't understand that we're in the UK and wherever, and they don't get the time. We'll pick up the phone. Or we can pause what we're doing. And it was a certificate holder realized that their certificates expired the next day. And they were literally they were chancing their arm and phoning gun shops around the local area to see if there was anybody that could take them in that night. And then he drove down literally 45 minutes later with all of his guns and put them in. So I do just want to say, first of all, don't stress. Well, first of all, know when your certificates are going to expire. Put it in your calendar, right? Put it in your calendar and put at least a month reminder to the date of when your certificates expire. Certainly if you've got a separate shotgun and firearm certificate, because they might expire on different dates, but put that date and a reminder in your phones right this second, right? Everybody with a certificate, put the reminder in your phone. Because a lot of this is people realizing at the last minute, and then it makes things a whole lot worse, right? So then you can be prepared for it and you can make your plans in advance. However, we do offer the service at Magload if you literally don't have anywhere else you can go. And whilst we may not always respond to messages and emails, 24/7, they come through, like all of the business emails come through both to myself and Connor's. The phone lines will ring through, unless you guys start pranking us, we'll ring through, and we will be notified. So if you ever get in the situation where you think I need to get my guns to an RFD tonight and everyone's shut or whatever, and obviously you're on the south coast, unless you want to drive all the way down the country, you can always ping us an email, ping a message. If we see an urgent request come through on the emails, or we get a phone call, if we get a phone call at a funny time, might not get picked up, but certainly an email or a message we will see come through. So we will rush back to the unit if we're available. So if you ever get in that situation and you're in this sort of area, or you really have nowhere else and you want to drive down, you can get in contact with us. We do have storage. We can store pretty much any size collection. And we charge a real nominal fee for any sort of storage, and basically all what we charge for is the increase on our insurance, because everything's fully insured. That's kept in our armory. So just don't panic if you get in that situation. You can always give us a call, pretty much, or an email, pretty much any time of day, and we in emergencies, in something that's urgent, we will get back to you as soon as possible. Oh God, we're not going to start talking about cigars now, are we? Partagas Series D number 4. Partagas, I've not tried yet. It's on the list. I'm still fairly fresh getting into it. In terms of the Cubans, it's the Upmans. The Upmans I am really enjoying, and I actually it was the other day. I got my hands on a Upman Connoisseur A. It was beautiful. Magnum Upman Magnum 54. That was a good one as well. And despite everyone being out of stock, I do currently have 4 Upman number 2s that I'm trying to put off sampling, just to get a bit of age on them. But to be honest, it's the New Wells that are doing it for me. My father, Olivia, Drew Estate, Liga Privada, not the Underground Shade. Really didn't like that. But yeah, anyway, this isn't a cigar channel. Maybe we'll have a cigar stream at some point, if you guys would be interested. Callum, stop. You're just giving them reasons to make them 5 years shorter. Whoops. I'm trying to... You guys are very active in the comments tonight, aren't you? Daniel, I need to smoke some again with you. How was the pack I gave you? I haven't actually had any from what you gave me yet. I'm letting them rest in the humidor for a little bit, and also I sort of want to have them with you. Oh, you're welcome down. Certainly, if you want to come down for a cigar, bud, you are welcome anytime. I have now very quickly got to the point where I have a humidor at home and I have a Tupperware at work. So whether I'm at home or work, if I fancy a cigar, I will have one to hand. And because I have a highly addictive personality, I have more than enough cigars to go around already. Greece was fruitful, to say the least. I mean, when the cigars are literally a third of the price, you can't help yourself. You just have to buy 3 times as much, right? Thunder Chunky. That's a username and a half. What advice is there for a spouse when a husband or wife dies? Because my nan was made to give a large collection away because she wasn't licensed. It cost her hundreds of thousands. That can't be lawful. You're sort of right. So there is a process when this happens, which involves getting a temporary permit. So basically, there's a lot that could be done or should have been done. So let's not forgetting that the firearm certificate is about the authority to possess, right? It's actually nothing about ownership. You do need a certificate to purchase a firearm or purchase a shotgun to be the lawful owner. But you know, when I lost my certificates, my guns didn't stop being my guns. They were still my lawful property. Nobody else could decide what happened to those firearms. Yes, the police take them and store them for a little bit, but then I requested for them to be released to an RFD of my choosing. And then once they were with that RFD, if I chose to sell some of the guns, they sold them on my behalf. If I wanted to keep them, they stored them on my behalf, until such time as I was able to, reallocate them or redistribute them, or, ended up being on a firearms dealership and could have them in the armory and have access to them again, despite not having a certificate. Madness. Whatever they're smoking, I would like some. So yeah, it's they would have still been, because it's a really weird one. So assuming it was your nan's, so you say your nan, so I guess it was your granddad, your nan's husband. It was his legal property. Now, depending on what his will says, and I'm assuming the will said that everything went to your nan. Well, his property, including his guns, would have therefore automatically, lawfully, be transferred to your nan. So your nan would have been the lawful owner of those firearms and that property. She might not have had the authority to possess those guns, but they were her property, and only she could decide what happens to them. So yes, the police are going to come, they're going to take them away and put them in an armory, but they can't destroy them without your nan's consent. They can't sell them on or give them to somebody else without your nan's consent. So what your nan should have done is what most people are saying is this temporary permit, so that and basically they sort of rush through a certificate so that you can stay in possession of them, because the police really don't like storing guns because they're liable for them. It takes up space and all of that. So they like to get them out of there as quickly as possible. But absolutely, at the very least, your nan should have been able to get an RFD to come and pick up the guns, either directly from the house when your granddad passed away, or from the police station. So I don't know what happened there, but if the police have unlawfully pressurized your nan to surrender them, or they have destroyed or disposed of those guns without your nan's permission, then they have committed an offense. They are breaking the law. I do wonder if she can make a claim. It sounds like it must have been terrible advice. Again, it does sound like it. So yeah, be very, very interested. I mean, if you want a really good firearms, oh, why am I just showed that comment? You're welcome. If you do want a recommendation of a very good firearm specialist solicitor to sort of pursue this, then you can drop me an email. Or if you find yourself in any sort of firearm legal pickle, then you can it's Laura Sainsbury who I recommend. And if you want me to put you in contact, I mean, you can find her online quite easily, but if you want me to put you in contact, you can always drop me an email at EnglishShooting@gmail.com. And that goes for anything. If you've got any questions that you don't necessarily want to ask on here, you want any advice, whether it's to get into the sport, or you've got a weird situation that you want to talk to somebody about, just whatever, anything that makes firearms ownership easier for you, you can drop an email, EnglishShooting@gmail.com, and I try my best to get back to everybody as quickly as possible. What's buzzing? If I just forgot, if anybody is in the market, no, I'm not gonna go there. Bad thoughts. Alan Hall, Henry Winterman, Imperial. To be honest, I'm sure I will try those sorts of cigars later on, but I'm really enjoying the larger what size are the Imperials? I'm really liking like the hand rolled stuff, the really, like the Nicaraguans, the Cubans, Dominicans, Hondurans, stuff like that. But I'm sure I'll venture. There's just so much really good stuff, and I'm not like a regular smoker. I tend to have like one a week. There was a lot more smoked in Greece, that's for sure, but one a week, if I'm lucky sometimes. So my ethos is like, if I'm going to enjoy it, I'm gonna have one a week. It's gonna be a pretty decent stick. So I tend to go for sort of more expensive sticks, because yeah, sort of quality, not quantity for me on that one. But you never know. You never know. Alan Bowen, Annie Cullis, I have no idea. Letter, just days you'll be contacted by an FEO. My old one has retired from the force. Okay, that's different conversation going on there. Just as a big reminder, of course, make sure you've liked the stream. I think actually, I'm sure Holly will be appreciative of this, but I think I'm going to keep it short and sweet for tonight. Have I covered everything? If we've covered all the big stuff, unless anybody else has any burning questions, or we can talk about cigars, talking about burning questions. But before you all go off, make sure you've hit that like button. You've make sure you are subscribed. Somebody asked, can an FBO have an FAC or an SGC? Absolutely. I'm aware of a good number of FEOs that have FACs or SGCs, and I know of FEOs that are. Do they have RFDs? I don't think they have RFD, but they're under RFDs. They are servant of RFDs, and I know FEOs that are servants of Section 5 RFDs. So, you know, in my history, it's not a hard and fast rule. I know of exceptions, but generally, the best FEOs are the ones with certificates, right? There's a guy I can never remember his name, but the head of Surrey firearms licensing. I've met him a few times, and I've been, you know, sort of vaguely connected in other dealings. Now he is an avid shooter. He's a firearm enthusiast. He loves shooting, and he understands the sport. He understands the law, and he understands the process for both sides. And that's why Surrey, for the longest time, has been one of the best counties that I've been aware of, because it's run by an enthusiast. Now, it's not to say that he's giving out guns willy-nilly because he's like, I want more people to have guns. But no, he understands, having been through the process himself. He understands what he's doing because he shoots. And to be honest, I really think it should be a prerequisite that if you know, there's the whole sort of conflict of interest, and, you know, it's sort of the tail leading the dog and all of that. But I think you need to be able to demonstrate some understanding of firearms ownership, and shooting to be an FEO, right? Because we talk about it all the time about being a self-governing, sort of self-monitoring, policing community, and the people that are actually lawfully required to police us, they're usually far more effective when they come from a shooting background themselves. Moreover, they can sniff through the bullshit, right? They can see right through it and go, well, no, you're trying to pull the wool over my eyes here. If you've got an FEO that's wet behind the ears and doesn't know what they're doing, you could spout all sorts of bollocks to them and get away with it. The toaster, forgive my ignorance, do you have a club? I don't know what you mean by a club. I mean, I'm a member of a variety of clubs. There's Kentucky Firearms Club, which I highly recommend on the South Coast. Pro Shoot Firearms up in Wales. There's Recoil up in Scotland, although I'm not actually. I think I'm actually a member of Recoil. NITSA out in Northern Ireland, I'm a member of. I was for the longest time a member of Imperial College. That's where I started shooting. I actually sort of lose count of the amount of clubs I'm a member of. But I don't run a club or have a dedicated club for myself. One day, very much part of the plan. But anyway, on that note, guys, I think I am going to stop it there for this evening. So again, big thank you everyone for joining. I hope you've enjoyed it tonight. If you are watching this afterwards, not live, then you can still use the comment section if you have any questions. And again, if you need any help or guidance on anything at all that you don't want to talk about in the live streams. And you can always email me at EnglishShooting at gmail.com. But I hope you'll have a oh, you mentioned you store guns. I thought you may run a club. No, I run a registered firearms dealership. So Magload, I'm not actually wearing my Magload cap, but I'm a co-owner and one of the directors of Magload, which is a registered firearms dealership. We're approved to store, buy, sell guns and all of that. So we're able to store guns there commercially. But anyway, there we go, guys. I hope you all have a fantastic week ahead. Hopefully shooting filled. Yeah, drop a like if you haven't already, and make sure you're subscribed, because we try to do this every single week. And have a fantastic week ahead. And of course, as always, guys, I hope to see you soon.